Okay, so good afternoon. Welcome to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency's webinar on the 2019 Annual Owner Reporting. My name is Ashley Sweeney, and I am the Training and Technical Assistance Coordinator at OFA. This webinar will focus on what is needed to complete your annual reporting submission to OFA. Today, we will cover how to manage DevCo compliance users, how to review errors and warnings, reviewing utility allowances, exporting events, entering and finalizing your tenant data, and lastly, submitting the annual certification on each project. Something new today is that I will be going over some common issues in DevCo that are seen yearly during annual owner reporting season or because of recent issues in DevCo. And we'll discuss those at the end. So if people have questions, or I'm going to just talk about some of the common things I see in the help desk. So hopefully this will help your answers to help answer some of your questions and avoid you having to put in some help desk tickets. So we will start by discussing deadlines for annual owner reporting. And you can access a PowerPoint on the GoToWebinar access bar summarizing what is covered today. Hopefully, as we go through the information, a lot of your questions will be answered. And if not, we'll try to, again, answer them at the end. Or you can always, I will answer any unanswered questions during the webinar after the webinar is over. And I will send them out as a follow-up email to everyone. And then again, you can always contact the DevCo help desk for assistance. So first, let's just go over the deadlines for annual owner reporting. So tenant data and the annual owner certification are due by Sunday, March 1st. Now we understand that this is a Sunday, but we will not be giving any extensions because of this date. So please keep in mind that even though it's on a weekend, that everything is still due by Sunday, March 1st. And that is by literally 11:59 on that Sunday of March 1st. Owners should ensure any property changes that have occurred during the 2019 calendar year be entered into DevCo Online. New projects or those in lease-up phase must submit an annual owner certification and tenant data if one or more residents were income qualified during the 2019 calendar year. Projects only funded with Ohio Housing Trust funds or other gap financing will need to submit tenant data on just the units that qualify for the gap financing. Projects in extended use, meaning after the first 15 years of the tax credit compliance period, are still required to report on all rental activity for the 2019 year. So let's get started. I'm going to first get out of this PowerPoint. Take us online, hopefully. All right. So first, we are going to go to OFA's homepage. Our homepage is www.ohiohome.org, and there is a DevCo icon close to the bottom of the homepage on our Quick Links portal. So if you scroll down, you can get to our DevCo homepage right here. Now on this DevCo homepage, there is a DevCo login link right here under our Quick Links guide. But I'm going to talk about the DevCo Compliance Guide link first. This guide has all of the information we will be discussing today, which is your DevCo Compliance User Guide. This is here. It's an excellent resource to have at your fingertips. I suggest printing it out or keeping a bookmark on your computer. Most questions we receive in the DevCo Help Desk are answered in this guide. So this guide will also be updated very soon. So be on the lookout for this because there has been some changes, but it's still very helpful to have at your fingertips. I also want to bring your attention to the DevCo's videos page, which is here. This page contains how-to videos that cover the major areas of DevCo used in reporting. So the videos include registration, how to manually enter an event, how to manage your property users, how to upload an XML file, how to do a student certification in DevCo, how to do composition updates, and how to do transfer events. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see last year's annual owner reporting webinar, and it's a DevCo inspection webinar if anybody has questions on DevCo inspection, which we will not be talking about today. So I'm going to go to the DevCo login page. All right. Now, here you should enter in your username and password. So each user in DevCo should have their own profile. If you are not registered in DevCo, just click the new user link here. It's right here. And follow the instructions. Once you have registered, the online project owner for the property, who is someone from your organization, will give you access. Only if you are a new project will you need someone from OFA to approve your DevCo access. Also, if you have changed ownership in recent time, that you'll need somebody from OFA to approve your access. So section 1 of our user guide gives you step-by-step instructions on how to register. And if you're having any trouble registering, once you've looked over the information in the guide, please feel free to contact the DevCo Help Desk for assistance. Please note that I am only discussing DevCo compliant users access today, which is different from DevCo inspection users. So if you have any questions on either DevCo inspection or DevCo compliance, please put that information in the help desk. And also, it's very helpful to decipher which type of access type that you need when you are putting in a help desk ticket. And if it's both, that's fine to say both, but a lot of times we get help desk tickets and people say, I need access, it's very vague. So the more detailed you are, the easier it is for us to help you. Okay, so let me log in here, and I am using Internet Explorer today. And you're able to use Internet Explorer or Chrome for DevCo compliance. Now, if you were using DevCo inspection, you would only be able to use Chrome. So first, we want to go to the tenant income certification / owner certification link to go to all the projects that are assigned to you in DevCo. All right. So now you can see all of the projects that you have approved access for will be listed under properties assigned to you. During your registration, you are required to enter each project number you have access to. Each project should have a 2019 and a 2020 reporting year available. We want to go to the 2019 year for the property. I'm going to use the filter feature to get to my project so I can get to it a little faster since I have a lot of projects here listed. This filter feature is also needed anytime you're trying to access any type of older reporting years. So anything before 2019, you have to actually type in the project name and then push the show all reporting years to get to any older years in DevCo. So I'm going to go to our test property, which is not salmon test, but salmon chase. There we go. All right, and then the 2019 year. Here we go. Okay, so first we're going to discuss how to manage users in DevCo. So you can see the Manage Users link right here on the left-hand side. And click on that link. So when you register for DevCo, you're asked about the permissions you want access to. So first, we're going to talk about your online project owner access type. This person should always register first in DevCo for a new property. Like Amelia Earhart here, they have permission to approve or deny access to all of the other users on the property. They can also finalize the tenant data and submit the annual certification. And lastly, the owner or the project owner can edit information, which means they can add any tenant data and any utility allowance information. So the next access type is your property manager. They have permissions to manage users and edit information. According to our DevCo Online, the online project owner and the online property manager can technically do the same things for your side of DevCo. It's a little different for ours, but just to let you know, they have the same permissions. Next, we want to go to an OC editor. This person only has permission to access information as far as tenant data and to edit and add utility allowances. And then lastly is your OC viewer, who can only view information in a property. A lot of times your syndicators for your projects have this type of access. All of these access types are included in the handout that you can access from the webinar. And note that we do not use any of the 8609 progress report access types. So anytime you're trying to register, just disregard all of those access types. And then unless you have project owner or property manager access in DevCo, you will not see the current page I'm on or the manage users link on the property details screen. So some people are probably like, where is this at? But if you don't have property owner or property manager access, you won't see this page. So I'm going to go back to the property details screen. Now this page should have your OFA award or funding, which is all here, and your ownership and management company information. So if you have any owner information or management company information that needs to be updated, you need to contact the DevCo help desk. Now, if you've had an actual management company or ownership change, that has to go through our actual project changes process. And we want to make sure that all that information is correct before we enter it. So you have to go to the actual OFA website, which is the www.ohiohome.org, and then go to our asset management section to get that information. So you know how to submit those ownership or management company changes. Another thing you can view on the property details page now is your rent and income levels, which is listed for each property with these two boxes. Now each box shows what percentages are available and how many units are needed for each percentage. So like you see here, I got a 35%, then we need 15 units at 35, 30 units at 50, and 15 units at 60. And you can also see that information for the rent levels as well. This is a great way to show how many units or events are currently entered for your property versus what's required. This feature is only for tax credit programs. So if you have home only or trust fund only properties, you will not see the required information on in those boxes. This feature was added to the account to help anybody who has the average income minimum set aside to make sure that their unit designations are at an average of 60% or less. But this has become a very helpful tool for anyone who has been entering in their tenant data. So keep in mind that you are only able to choose the rent and income levels that are stated on the project's restrictive covenant and or their funding agreements. And if you think your information is incorrect, please contact the DEFCO Help Desk and we will look into correcting that information for you. Now, also on the left side of the property details page, you'll see the name of the property, which is here. And then under it are all of the bins or the building identification numbers. If you click the plus sign of each bin, you'll see all the units in all the bins, which you can see here. Now, if you click on the unit information page, so we'll click on the unit, the actual unit number, you can see information about each unit. So the unit name, number of bedrooms, square footage, AMI percentage, unit identity, and status date, and the status. Now, as you see, most of this information has been grayed out, so you're unable to change it. And again, if you think that this information is incorrect or if it's blank and needs to be filled in, please, again, contact that DEFCO Help Desk and we will update this information for you as soon as possible. Okay. So let's go back to the property details page, which you can always do by clicking on the unit or the project name. And we're going to discuss utility allowances. Now, utility allowances need to be reviewed and updated yearly. Even if your utility allowance amount has not changed, you do have to update the information in DEFCO every year. If you have owner-paid utilities, this needs to be marked on the building details page for each building. So the building details page is if you click the actual bin number, you'll get to that page. And if you have owner-paid utilities, you see that this box is checked. So you can uncheck it or recheck it and push update to make sure you don't have any issues with your owner-paid utilities. If you do have owner-paid utilities, this is new, please do not try to update or enter those owner-paid utilities in the utility allowance section. This is unnecessary for the information to go here, and it actually ends up causing issues once we run compliance checks for the reporting year. So a lot of times people get compliance letters and they have information about utility allowances, but they're like, I have owner paid utilities. Well, a lot of times it's because the person has entered that owner paid utility information in this utility allowance section here. So we're asking people to not enter it now anymore if you do have owner paid utilities only. All right, so utility allowances that were used anytime in 2019 need to be added in DEFCO. You may use your 2018 utility allowance if the effective date or your verified date for your 2019 UAs are after January 1st of 2019. I'm just going to click on the UA section so you can see it. So utility allowances need to be entered for each type of allowance, not by the unit or by bin. Each type meaning by bedroom size or apartment layout. Examples are single family versus townhomes or one bedrooms versus two bedrooms. And as you can see, it's like unit type here, and you can see the one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom here. So to add a new utility, you would click Add New right here, and then start going in on adding a utility allowance. I'm just going to click one of our 2019 ones so you can see all of the different sections here. So first, when you're in a UA, we're going to skip over the description right now because that's actually going to update once we keep adding in our information. The very first section here is your verified date. This verified date is very important in DEFCO. It has to be updated every single year, even if your UA has not been updated. Again, this has to be updated every year, no matter what. So we need to verify utility allowances at least once a year. As you see, this one is 1/1/2019. So next is your effective date. Now, the effective date is the actual date that you see on the utility allowance. So this is whenever it came into place. Like, so for the PHA, it will be whenever that UA was, brought onto the website that you see it. Next is your building style. Now, this is a newer feature that we added, and this feature has to be chosen. You have to choose the building style anytime you're trying to do an XML upload in DevCo. So if you want your UAs to upload successfully during XML, you have to choose the building style here on the utility allowance page and make sure that it correlates. I'm going to go back to your building, which I'm clicking on the bin, utility allowance building style. So as you see, the low rise building style is chosen here. And that is the same utility allowance building style that I have on my 3-bedroom. Let me see here to make sure they correlate. Okay. So next is your bedroom size. And again, you usually have different utility allowances depending on the bedroom size. And you want to do your allowance type. So just pick which type of data you have for utility allowance. So once you have entered all this information, your actual description updates automatically now. Now, we changed this field a couple years ago now, so it'll be easier to decipher between utility allowances. We were having a lot of issues with people trying to pick their UAs on any type of events, and they were unable to decipher between like their 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms, or their 2019 utility allowances versus 2018 utility allowances. So I'm just going to go in and explain this. So first, we'll always show your verified date, which you see the V. And this is then a 4-digit year, a 2-digit month, and a 2-digit day. Next, it'll go into the actual building style, which is low rise, your bedroom amount, your allowance type, and then lastly, your effective date, which is also a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, and 2-digit day. Okay. Now, you do not have to use this description. If you want to update your description, that is totally fine. This is just there to help people who were having issues with that. So next, we're going to go down here and talk about all your utility allowance types. So each category. So now you have the amounts, the pay by field, and the sources. So if you have issues where some of the utility allowances are owner paid, like maybe the owner pays for the gas, and then the tenants would pay for the electric and the trash, you are able to decipher that here. And as you see, anytime I change the owner paid by field, it will update the actual total for the utility allowance. So you see that changed to $50 when I put owner paid. Now, if I go back to tenant paid, it'll go back up to 110. And I want to make sure I push save. Lastly, I'm going to go back in here and talk about our bins. So make sure you choose all of the bins that are relevant to each utility allowance. So here, all of them are chosen. I think that is the easiest way to do it, so you don't have any issues when you're on the event trying to choose that utility allowance. Because if you don't choose the actual bin for the utility allowance that you're trying to use for that unit, it will not show up. So I just think it's easier if you just click all the bins and then push save. Okay. Now, lastly, say you don't have a new utility allowance and all you need to do is update the verified date for the year. The easiest way to do that is to use our copy feature. So you would push copy here. And then the only thing that needs to change is the verified date, which I'm just going to keep it at 1/1, because the verified date from year to year should always just be one year apart. No more days, because you may have issues where your utility allowance isn't effective for some of your events. So I'm going to put 1/1/2020. Everything else has stayed the same, and all I do is push update. Now, just note that you will not see the 2020 utility allowances on this page just because we are in the 2019 year. So if I was go into my 2020 year of this project, then you would see that 2020 utility allowance. All right, so once you've updated all your utility allowances, now you can start entering in your tenant data. You need to make sure that you are entering in your tenant data based on when it occurred and not by the actual event type. So example, you don't want to enter all your move-ins and then go back and enter all of your move-outs. So last spring, we did make it mandatory for projects to enter in their tenant data monthly. So this was to help prevent so many people trying to enter in their tenant data during the annual owner season, which can cause issues in DevCo, like it starts to freeze up sometimes, or it's just very slow. So hopefully you have already been entering in your tenant data monthly this year. And if not, you have until March 1st to make sure. But then you also need to make sure you're entering your tenant data anytime you're about to have a compliance review or audit. So next, I'm going to start showing you some of our event types. You want to make sure that the last event for that unit is listed, so in the previous year, before you try to do any updates for the 2019 year. So I'm going to click on Unit 4 here to show you. Now we see that this information is grayed out, so we know that the 2018 or it could be in any previous year, but there is information in here, so we know that we don't have to go back. Now, if you do click on a unit and there is no grayed out information, like here in Unit 5, and you're supposed to have information there, so you're not entering a new move-in, but you're entering possibly a recertification or a rent update. Make sure you go back to that 2018 year or whatever year you missed first, enter in that information, then come back to the 2019 year to enter things. Because all of your tenant data in DevCo does have to be in chronological order. So I'm unable to enter in my 2019 information and then go back and enter 2018. So just to make that note. All right, so there are different event types here in DevCo that we want to discuss. Excuse me. So I'm just going to add just an event date so you can see all of the different event types. So you have a move in, move out, recertification, transfer out, composition update, rent update, or student update. So if the unit has home or housing, Ohio Housing Trust funds, you will need to do a recertification for that unit. So you have to make sure you do research if they have home funds on the unit. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a 2019 for the year or full third-party recertification or self-certification as far as home funds are concerned. You still need to do a recertification in DevCo for any gap financing. Unless there was a rent update or a composition update on a different day that your tenant recertified, you can make all of the changes during the recertification. Now, if you have any market units, you are able to change the unit identity here to market. So those will not be counted during when we do our compliance checks. So you are able to change that on this page. So I'm just going to delete this event so I can go back and talk about some of the other access types, or not access types, but tenant data types. Okay. So what if your property is 100% tax credit, meaning you don't have any market units? Then you don't have to do recertifications on your property, but you do have to do student updates for each unit. You do not have to print a tick for this type of event in DevCo, but you do need to make sure this information is updated. Properties in extended use, have been told before that they are not required to do student updates in DevCo, but this is going to start being a requirement now for everyone. Just heads up. I know there will be some information out, but since this is a webinar, I'm just letting you know. If you are in extended use, we will be starting to require student updates in DevCo. Now, if there has been any rent change anytime in 2019, you need to do a rent update. And this is very important for anyone who has any type of Section 8 funding where the rent is going up and down constantly. You do need to be putting those updates in our DevCo system. And then finally, if you have any household members change, so someone has moved out or moved in other than the head of household, that would be a composition update in DevCo. Now last, we're going to talk about your transfer type of event. So anytime you need to do transfers, you want to make sure you push the transfer out, and then you would choose whichever unit that is available. The only time you're able to choose those units is if the unit is vacant in DevCo. So like this is showing you that the status here on the unit information page on unit 5 is vacant. So you would be able to do a transfer into that unit. Now, if the unit is occupied, as you see here, you will not be able to do a transfer. So make sure you have moved out whoever else that was in that unit before you move in the next person or do that transfer for that unit. Okay. So please remember to add in the income information for all event types that need to be printed. So meaning if you were doing a recertification or anything, you want to make sure you do the income from assets and income from employment down here at the bottom as well, because that information is very important to have on the tick. So I'm going to show you that. See, so you got non-asset income and asset income. And it does give you very detailed instructions on how to do the actual household income for everyone. So you want to enter in their information at the bottom first, push calculate total household income and member income, and then this amount here will be updated along with all of the current incomes for the household members. Then you would push update. But it does give you that information here. So just make sure you're actually reading that if you're having issues, because that is a common problem in DevCo. So lastly, you would do any move outs for anybody who has moved out in the 2019 year. Move outs are the easiest type of event. So I have to delete this, which is fine. We'll go back. I'll show you a move out. Go back into that. All you have to do for the move out is put in the actual event date and push move out. Everything else is grayed out, and then you push update, which makes it very easy for you. Okay. I want to reiterate that we are concerned with all of the events that happened during the 2019 year. So if you are trying to enter all of your move-ins, then enter all of your move-outs, this will create errors on your unit status, which I was showing you the occupied versus vacant on the unit information page. Events need to be entered in chronological order to ensure that information is stored properly in the database. You will receive an error if events are not entered in order. So we recommend adding events unit by unit, again, not by unit type. So let's go back to the property details page, and we're going to talk about exporting events. So the export events feature is over here on the right side of the page, the third one down. So if you'd like to get a view of your progress on entering your tenant events, you can go to this portal. This will only show you the events entered for the reporting year you were actually in. So this will give you an overview of all of the data you've entered for each unit. To convert this chart into an Excel spreadsheet, you want to click the Export Events button here, and then it'll take you to Excel. This is a great tool to make sure you have entered all of the events for the reporting year. Please note that because there's been some updates on our events page, the export events will not show you the correct award or funding program for the units. Now you should still be able to see all of the units here, but as you see, this still says funding type. And now if you're on the actual events page, the corresponding things are awards. So just to let you know, so if you're trying to count all of your tax credit events or all of your home units, you'd have to figure that out a different way now until that's going to be updated. But it won't be updated before March 1st. So just to let you know. And I know I have received a couple of help desk tickets concerning this. So if you are having problems with the export events feature, just please contact DevCo Help. Next, we're going to talk about importing events or the XML upload. So if you have compliance software and are planning to upload your XML file into DevCo, you can do it here in this import events portal. We will not be demonstrating the XML upload process today, but there is an XML webinar recording in DevCo in our DevCo video section because we actually had a new process with the XML upload last year. So that webinar is online. So if you have an XML file that is ready to be uploaded, please make sure that it's in the 4.0 NAMA standard. This is an update from the 2.0 standard that we have been using before last year. Try to upload your XML files as soon as possible. If you are having issues, please email the DevCo Help Desk as soon as you can. Please do not wait until the last minute, i.e. the week before March 1st deadline to upload your files, because OFA cannot guarantee assistance and is not responsible for errors that occur if you are unable to upload your file. So next, we're going to go talk about errors and warnings in DevCo. At the property details page, you may find an alert about issues with your tenant data. So we see here, there's a little alert under the property details banner. You want to click on this link and review the property issues. The severity listed will be warning or error. So you see the severity listed. All of these are warnings. And if the severity is a warning, you will be able to finalize your tenant data with the issue listed. If the severity is error, you have to correct this issue before you can finalize your tenant data. Now, both types of issues should be reviewed to see if you can resolve them before you try to finalize the data. So here, all of these are warnings. So we're going to try to update some of this. All of this is your utility allowance information is required. So if we go in here and hopefully, there we go. We just need to choose the UA. And you see that all of the warnings are in green because it's like green is still a go. But if you have any errors, it'll be red. So it's like a hard stop. And then you push update. Once you click the UA, push update. And then now you see that warning is gone away. There you go. Now, if you're having any errors and you're unable to correct them for whatever reason, if there's some issues, just contact the DevCo Help Desk. There has been some wonky things out there where people are unable to correct it. Even I am unable to correct it. I had to send some things up to IT. Okay. So after you reviewed all of your warnings, all of your errors, your utility allowances, your tenant data, it is time to finalize your year. This is a fairly simple process. So you want to go back to the property details page and click Finalize Year here on the right-hand side. Then you want to click the Start Finalization Process button. It's going to take me to my errors/warnings list again to see if I want to resolve them before I finalize. You want to try to resolve as many errors or not errors, but warnings, because you can't finalize with errors. Try to resolve any warnings you have here before you do finalize a year. Because even though you're able to finalize the year, most of the time these warnings will show up once you do receive that compliance letter. So since this is a utility allowance information issue here, even if I was to finalize, that would show up once I do go through my compliance checks and see that UAs are still needed for those events. But just for time's sake, we're going to proceed to finalize. And then all you do is push finalize. Once you get here, you see a submission receipt, and it gives you the date. It tells you who finalized it and everything. You're able to print this page for your records. A lot of times it's easier to just make a screenshot of this and print it. And as you can see, our finalized year button has turned into a receipt year or receipt button. So you can always go back in there and click and see the same information there. So once you have finalized your year, the property is unable to do any more tenant data or utility allowance updates for that year. So say you forgot some information and you need that opened. Again, you have to contact the DevCo help desk and somebody will open that year back up for you so you can make some additional changes. And once those changes have been made, you will then need to refinalize your year. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about today is your annual certification. This is the second part of the annual owner reporting. This is two parts. You have to make sure you finalize the tenant data and submit the annual certification. So if you click on annual certification here, it brings you to the property general information page. You want to make sure that all of this information, again, is up to date. And if not, you can always choose no, and then it'll give you a box and you can specify whatever project changes that have occurred that year. Okay, so once you do that, you push save and then go to next. Now here you're able to choose your annual certification type. Depending on what year you are in what year you are in, like either if you're in your compliance period, or your extended use period, which is after the first 15 years, you will choose that particular annual certification. If you also have home funds and or Ohio Housing Trust funds, you also need to click the gap financing. So for this particular project, we have tax credits. We're in our first 15 years, and we have gap financing. So we're going to choose both. If you have any questions on how to choose or what type of annual certification to choose, please read over these instructions at the top. It is very helpful. You push load, and it brings us to all of our questions for your annual cert. Now you want to go through line by line and answer the questions. There have been some updates this year to the annual certification, so please be mindful of that. We are asking about supportive services this year because most, if not all, of our projects are required to have supportive services. So we're trying to do our due diligence about that now. And then our VAWA question, which is your Violence Against Women's Act, has been consolidated into one question now concerning all of the different aspects of VAWA that you should be complying to. And no matter if you're in extended use, if you're in your compliance period, or if you have gap financing, everyone should be complying with VAWA. So next you want to save this information and then go to the next one. Now, since I had already submitted this information, as you can see, it is here. But normally you would have to put your name, title, company, email address, and your direct phone number and push submit. Now this is telling me that I need to also submit my broker's license information, since we're saying that this test project is third party managed. So you do have to submit your broker's license information every year if you do have third party managed, have a third party management company, meaning it's not owner managed. Okay, now anytime you can print this page as well here, and this will print out the entire certification for you, which is very helpful. And if you do forget, that's no problem. There's always a timestamp here telling you when you submitted it and at what time. If you go back to the property details page, you can also always access your annual certification by clicking here. And then the print button is at the top for your convenience. All right. So this brings me to the end of this presentation. So if you missed any part of the webinar today, it will be available on the DevCo videos page next week. And we will also have the same webinar available Tuesday, February 11th at 2 p.m. So we thank you for attending today, and I will start answering questions now. And then again, if we're still have some time, we'll go over some of the common issues that we see in the help desk. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions. We actually had a very good turnout. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to open up the questions box. I only got a few questions. Okay, so someone is asking me, what's the difference between the verified date and the effective date? Okay, that is a very good question. It says, where does the verified date come from? It would match the effective date. Da, da, da. Okay, so let me explain the difference. So your effective date is the actual date on your utility allowance. So say you have the PHA UA. You go in there and you see that actual date for the UA. Now, sometimes we know that your utility allowances they won't be updated every year. So that effective date could last for 2 or 3 years, depending on your PHA. But the actual verified date has to be updated in DevCo every year. So like I'll go back to the UA that I was using before. Even though the effective date had not changed, I had did a 2020 before, but we can go into one of these. So, I finalized the year now, so we can't change it. But as you see, so say this effective date was 2018, that is fine. But as long as your verified date is actually updated yearly, then you will be in compliance with OFA, because it is actually a rule that you have to update your UAs every year. We need to verify that information. So instead of people always changing their effective date, which may be incorrect, we just want you to update your verified date, that you have gone in there and looked over your utility allowances on a yearly basis. Okay. Someone else asks, when trying to finalize a property, if the utility allowances have been updated, you can't update the utility allowances on a vacant unit. How would you finalize that? You're saying if a unit is vacant, you would not need to update the utility allowance information on that particular unit. I think that's what you're asking me. Please let me know if that is not what you're asking, Bonnie. Okay. Can you go over how to get to the screen to show the warning errors without finalizing the year? Sure. Because I know a lot of people have questions about that. So if you are on the property details page at the top, it says there are 4 issues for this property. Please, or click to display. That's how you get to the actual screen with all of your warnings and errors. Now, if you don't have that on your property, like say you don't have anything here, that just means you don't have any warnings or errors. So you don't have to worry about it. You're doing great. And lastly, just one more question. It says, what if I want the owner to review the AOC before submitting? Can I do that or print out? So what you can do, if you want the owner to review everything, they actually have to get into DevCo and look at the information. Because once you go in here and start doing the annual certification, it says you can save it. As you saw before, this is not giving me the save button anymore because we finalized it. They are able to go in here, but I would definitely have your owners look at this information. And honestly, since DevCo inspection has been in existence, it's actually required for each owner to register in DevCo now. So they should already have access to DevCo, and I would tell them, hey, could you go in here and look at the information? Now, if you have already submitted the information and you want the owner to then like review it, you can definitely print out that owner annual owner certification. They can look it over, and if they want any changes, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure you contact the DevCo help desk. We can then open back up your annual certification. You can do whatever changes you need to be done, and then you would have to then resubmit it. Okay. Is there any more questions? You guys are making it easy for me. Okay. All right, let's see if we can go over some things that I know, I'm almost positive you're going to probably have some issues with this year. One thing is I'm going to have to unfinalize this project. Give me 1 second. Get this off the screen. Oops. Okay. So if I unfinalize that, take this back out. One of the main issues or problems that we've been having in DevCo is things concerning that award on an event. So people are saying, hey, I'm unable to save an event because the award isn't checked. And what I mean by that, if I go into this recertification here, I'm going to just add a new event. This is here. Why is this not showing? Let me, it's not updating. Give me 1 second. Sorry. And if you guys don't have any questions, you're free to leave. But I just want to go over some things. Salmon Chase. All right, so now it's active again. So if I go into this research, you see the awards here. These boxes right here, especially the LITEC box, always has to be checked now on your events. But what we have noticed that, say I accidentally put in a wrong date for a move out. So say I say this person moved out on 3/1/2019. Move them out, push update. So I do that update, but then I say, actually, they didn't move out on 3/1. I think they actually moved out on 3/5, and I have to delete this event. Now, as you see, the unit information page is here. If you go to the unit information page, you see these end dates have been entered on the awards, which causes issues anytime you're trying to do any updates. So you see these boxes are no longer checked when you have an end date there. What you need to do, if you do ever enter a move out and then have to erase that move out to re-enter something, you have to delete these end dates in DevCo. There's no way to get around it. So you would go into the unit information page, delete the end dates, and then push update. Okay, you see this one still popped up. DevCo's doing some wonky stuff right now. And we're in the midst of trying to fix it, but if it does not get fixed, this is your fix right here. Now, as you see, I deleted those end dates. If I go back, these two boxes are checked again. So anytime you try to enter in a move out and have to delete it, that will happen. The only way you can correct it though is if you are in Internet Explorer. So if you're using Chrome and are having this issue or you're unable to delete those end dates, please go to Internet Explorer to actually delete those dates. And a lot of times if we are getting help desk tickets on this, I have a little blurb, like I send out a page to people on how to correct this, but just in case. Also, I want to talk about how to access older reporting years in DevCo, because again, that is a common issue. People realize, hey, I forgot to enter something from 2018, so I need to go back. Make sure you click on, let's see if I can update this because I did it too fast. The property name, there's a little funnel. You click on that funnel and then you can type in part or the entire name. So here I'm only doing part of the name of the project, and then it'll filter it down to all those projects that have that name. Then you have to click show all reporting years. Then you see all of the projects and all of their years going all the way back. This is the only way to get to older reporting years. So that is a very common question that we get during the season. So that is how you do that. Other issues that we may see. Finalizing a year. Say you have, you actually have an error here. So the severity says error instead of warning. And you try to actually finalize the year with any errors, your property will automatically go into what we call the property review status, which prevents you from finalizing. So you have to contact DevCo help to do that. So that is why we ask people, instead of trying to finalize your year, when you have that error there, make sure you contact DevCo help for assistance on how to resolve your errors before you try to finalize the year, because then it gets you in this limbo status and you're unable to move on. And there's no way to help you other than contacting us to get that fixed. Yeah, what other issues do I think? I think that's about it. Those are the three main ones that I've seen or thought about. And if you guys don't have any other questions, I got somebody here. I know you're not talking about inspections, but how long we'll be able to see our audits in that side of the system? So someone's just asking about DevCo inspection, and your audit should be there forever. The actual compliance review reports will be there indefinitely, from what I hear. It won't, like, after a few years or 6 months or something, go away. I believe they will be there indefinitely. Well, they will be at this time. So, all righty. Well, thank you again for attending the webinar. And if there are no other questions, you have a great afternoon.